If you do plan on speaking, we do need you to sign in at the podium. First thing we'll make note of is there has been 2 postponements. The ZMA 2017-36 Yancey Griffith zone change has been postponed. And the ZMA 2017-37 Pleasant Valley subdivision zone change has been postponed. So we won't hear anything on those 2 applications tonight. They have been postponed. For the record, we are missing Mr. Cannon and Ms. Mizell and Charlie Perkins, our attorney. So, the first item of business is the approval of the September invoices. We need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the September invoices.
Motion by Mr. Solsky.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Caldwell. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion approved. Second item of business is the approval of the September 14th, 2017 minutes. Had time to look at them. We need a motion to approve, please.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Caldwell,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Solsky. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion approved. Approval of the October agenda.
I'll make the recommendation to approve, motion to approve the October agenda with the changes.
Motion by Mr. Solsky,
Second.
second by Mr. Moran. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion approved. Items for postponement and withdrawal, which we went over those 2. If you are here for the ZMA 2017-36 Yancey Griffith zone change or the ZMA 2017-37 Pleasant Valley subdivision zone change, those have been canceled. We will not hear those tonight.
Canceled.
Oh, postponed. They have been postponed. We could probably hear them next month. Just have to keep an eye on the advertisements. The consent agenda, we have 2 items for consent. One is PDP-2017-32, the Liggett and Platt Preliminary Development Plan for a 28,582 square foot, 70 space parking lot on the east side of Carly Drive in Georgetown Industrial Park. Is anyone here opposed to that application? To the Liggett Platt application? If not, we'll need a motion for consent, please.
So moved.
Mr. Chairman. Second.
A motion by Mr. Wiseman. A second by Mr. Smith. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion approved. Our second one eligible for consent is PDP-2017-34, HIPS Georgetown Warehouses, Preliminary Development Plan for a 100,000 square foot industrial warehouse building located at 840 Lemons Mill Road. Is anyone here to speak against that application? If not, we'll take a motion for consent. Now, this is a consent with a waiver. There is a waiver on this application, so we have to mention that in our
Is
consent.
that the early grading?
Yes, that's for them to start early to get going, so.
That was,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve with the waiver for early excavation. Just one little caveat, making sure that they work with our staff on that.
Yes. A motion by Mr. Shirley,
second.
second by Mr. Smith. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion approved. All right, now I'm going to sign here in just a second, get them to come up and sign. Whoever's here for Liggett Platt and the HIPS Georgetown Warehouses, could you come up and sign your papers, please?
Who's going to take care of it?
Which one are you? Which one?
Oh, they get that, sorry.
Oh, okay. You can sign that. Borrow your pen.
Here you go.
I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Sign this one too, please. You keep a copy. Thank you, ma'am.
There you are.
Here it is. Hips?
Yes.
copy.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You don't want one, I'll use it.
Oh, thank you, sir. All right, for all of you that have signed in to speak tonight, if you would, could you stand and raise your right hand so I can swear you in? Do you swear that the information that you're about to provide for your application is to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, good. All right, Matt. Go ahead, Matt.
All right. This first application tonight, PDP 2017-33, is for a self-storage development. The project site is on Paris Pike, just on the south side of Paris Pike, just to the west of the railroad. The project site is about 3.7 acres in size. The applicant is proposing a 900 square foot office and 84,350 square feet of storage space. The current zoning on the property is B2 highway commercial. There's no issues with the zoning for this type of use. The surrounding properties are zoned here along the south and the west side. These properties are all zoned I2 heavy industrial. Across Paris Pike, the properties are all zoned B2 highway commercial as well. And then on the east side, the property is bordered by the railroad. This is the project site here outlined in black. It's actually currently 2 parcels right now, and before any type of final development plan would be approved, we have asked that the applicants consolidate those into 1 parcel. Looking at the site plan that was provided for this project, the applicant is proposing an entrance here off of Paris Pike. They're also proposing an entrance down here off of East Main Extended. A couple of other features here on the project site. The applicant is proposing around 8 parking spaces, including 1 handicap accessible space. Those will have sidewalk access to the office building that's located right there. The rest of these, I guess, gray rectangles on the drawing are the self-storage spaces. With this larger building that's close to the or near to the railroad, proposed to be 3.5-story storage, and I believe that's also intended to be a climate-controlled building. As far as the other parking requirements, our requirements require that they provide at least 1 parking space for every 10 storage units. The applicant is only proposing to do 8 marked parking spaces. The rest of the parking, should you approve their variance to the parking requirement, will be accomplished by the width of the amount of space that they're leaving in between each building. They're proposing to leave 24 feet in between each building. So just, I guess, as a point of reference, a typical parking space is about 9 feet wide. So there would be plenty of room if a vehicle was parked at one of the storage units for another vehicle to pass by without too much difficulty. As far as pedestrian circulation for the project, I guess across the project site, we talked a little bit about it at workshop. The applicant isn't showing a sidewalk here along Paris Pike. I think after reviewing, the terrain on the project site, I'm in support of that because there is this area here that I've circled does have some fairly steep slopes. There's a storm sewer pipe that comes under the road here, and it drops off considerably where that empties out onto this site. As far as the setbacks, the setback requirements, the building coverage, the building height requirements, this application meets all of our requirements as far as those. The only variance that they're requesting is for the parking. Regarding landscaping and well, I guess before I get into landscaping, this area here I just wanted to note was where the applicant is proposing to have a detention basin for the stormwater. Any development on this project site will have to meet the requirements of the stormwater manual that the city passed. I guess that was earlier this year. But as far as landscaping and screening, these are all trees that they're showing here along the western boundary, screening the use from the neighboring properties. They have provided the landscaping, the required landscaping buffer here on the eastern side from the railroad. And they are showing interior VUA landscaping here, basically at the end of each of these storage buildings. And that meets our requirements as well. The only aspect of the landscaping that I think needs improvement is this area here by the parking. The parking lot needs to be screened from the right of way by a 3-foot continuous hedge and trees spaced, I believe, every 40 feet. And I think their drawing just omits the trees. As far as I know, they don't have any issues with providing those trees. They're just not on the drawing. So I would just ask that on the final development plan that those trees be there and then be installed when construction is underway. So with all that in mind, I am recommending approval of this application with these 7 conditions here. Most of them are standard. I did call out that they need to provide a landscape plan that complies with our regulations. And they will need, amongst other things, to get an entrance permit from KYTC before a final development plan will be approved. I am also recommending approval of their variance to reduce the parking to 8 total spaces, partly because I believe that some of that parking can be accomplished at the storage units themselves. That's it.
Anyone have any questions for Matt?
I have one.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, we had talked about on the sidewalk that it wasn't feasible to put the sidewalk. Is there any part of that a sidewalk would work? I mean, I think we should put a sidewalk where we can, and even if we can't put it everywhere. But anything's better than nothing, because there's no
Yeah.
sidewalk on either side of the street right now.
I mean, it might be more feasible over here. The slopes aren't quite as steep on this side of their proposed entrance.
Yeah.
But I think you could probably see it a little bit better on your hard copies of the development plan. But the contour lines really on both sides, indicate that that's a fairly steep slope there. On the one side it slopes down, and on the other side it slopes up. So I think it would probably be difficult. Could it be done? I mean, it could be done. They just probably have to cut and move a reasonable amount of earth.
There's a lot of foot traffic through there. And
There
there's no
is
sidewalk on either
certainly
side.
a lot of foot traffic through that area, and that is a concern.
I'd push for getting a sidewalk there somehow.
The problem there is if you cut part of the sidewalk, then people are gonna have to
gonna really
coming
create
in and
problems.
across the street.
Yeah.
And that might be a
They're gonna
pedestrian
they're
danger.
walking somewhere right now. They're walking in the
They're
grass.
walking over on the north side. You can't walk on the south side. It's that
steep?
difficult unless you're out in the street.
Well, on that north side too, you've got that
So you've got-
emergency lane, kind of emergency, a little bit of gravel.
Off of Washington,
sidewalk.
it's Washington, and it comes down
Bourbon,
beside
Bourbon.
the
Bourbon.
all-terrain place, Bourbon, thank you, yeah. And there's plenty of flat area there, and that's where the people are walking. Of course, the railroad bridge creates a problem, because then it's, there's nothing there.
I was trying to.
But that side is very feasible, I would think. I know that,
It's feasible, but it's not.
but nobody's,
It's not here.
not here for a development plan to get it done.
Yeah.
Right.
Any more questions for Matt?
Yeah, I apologize. I wasn't
Yeah.
here Monday. I was out of town. Can we ask for a right-in, right-out of the exit on
We've already
Paris
covered
Road?
that.
Have we? That's why.
And
Well,
no.
that's why I brought.
We can't do that, it turns out.
How come?
I mean, it's my understanding is since it's a state-controlled road, they're the ones who permit what kind of access is allowable there.
So do we have to request it from a state, or
I don't-
they recommend it?
I'm not
If
sure.
needed.
Ben, can we request that?
I really think we need to, and the reason I say that is I know there's a lot of accidents coming out of Bourbon Street.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna have people trying to cross Paris Pike to go into downtown,
Yeah.
I'll guarantee you people are gonna die. And that's just,
Actually, they changed Bourbon Street, it's one way
they
now.
did change Bourbon Street to
Yeah,
one
it's
way
a
where it
one-way
used to
now.
be two.
Yeah.
So that's helped a little bit. But if you let people come in and out either direction, it's gonna be a accident waiting to
Yeah,
happen.
I
So
agree, there's,
I
you know,
would ask
with
that
the
you ask
railroad,
the state
if
to do a
the
right-in,
site
right-out
distance might not
only.
be great.
And this way, and I mean, I like the entrance off East Main, that'll be nice, cause
Oh, that's the other question. Did we clear up whether the East Main, there was some question there about who owned that property in that corner?
We had it, to my knowledge, we haven't cleared it up yet. I know the applicant was, had mentioned they would be able to provide us with documentation
Okay.
that maybe clears that up, but I haven't seen that yet.
We'll let the applicant speak on that.
Yeah.
We'll let the applicant speak on that.
Good. Is the applicant here to speak?
For the record, my name is Jihad Hallani, and I'm with Vision Engineering. The 3 points, the first one with respect to sidewalk, we are for pedestrian connectivity, but our concern for this site is you have the bridge, and then which is kind of confined the driving lanes, and then there's an area in front of the office building, which is you can put a sidewalk. But our concern is that if we build a sidewalk, and then basically you are inviting people to walk on the sidewalk, and then you have the railroad, you have the railing of the roadway, which is the traffic lane is gonna get narrow, and then you are forcing people to cross the street, to cross the road to the other side to continue if there are pedestrian activities. That way, we are concerned that we are inviting them to kind of maybe to not the best safe condition. But but on the other side, that way they don't have to cross. So we don't mind putting the sidewalk where feasible on topography-wise, on the terrain, but the concern would be is that if we put the sidewalk, we are inviting pedestrian, and then we are forcing them to cross the street the other side. I don't know how much safety will be for the pedestrian in that activity.
The only other place I can think of that they can cross would be Bridge Street or on East Main Extended.
So I think I agree that on the north side will be the most feasible and the safer situation. I understand the application is not in front of you, but I'm sure it will happen one day. And with respect to the second point related to the right in, right out, this property is zoned as a commercial zone, and you know you have multiple of use you can allow in commercial zone. And storage is basically the least use that will generate traffic. So this site is not anticipated to generate high volume of traffic. So we believe that restricting the right in, right out is just going to be encumber this property, given the fact it's not going to generate that much of traffic. And if it's like any commercial use or any other use, I mean, I agree with you, and it need to be confined to right in, right out, but the traffic volume that this will generate is going to be very small amount. I mean, from traffic trip generation, warehouses, I mean, storage units are the least on the manuals that generate traffic. And with respect to the third point, we are, I need to provide documentation for the staff, but we are of the opinion, our surveyor of the opinion that this triangle, it's when the right-of-way, the excess right-of-way, or the abandoned right-of-way has been given, we believe that this is belong to that property, to our client, and we strongly believe that. So I need to provide the staff with some documentation about that. It's not an easy it's not an easy way you can find it. It's just a little bit complicated, and we believe that we have the right for it.
Does anyone have any questions for the applicant as far as that? I think he answered everybody's question. I think mine only one would be that right in, right out is, the storage buildings won't create a whole lot of traffic, but the traffic they do create is gonna be a lot of big trucks, U-Hauls and stuff coming in
U-Haul
out
and
there.
trailers, that's true. And, you know, when we go in front of the transportation cabinet, I'm sure they will have the same concern, and then we have to prove for them this is not an issue safety-wise. I mean, they understand the bridge is kind of confining the traffic, and, I mean, it's not like we're going to get everything we want. We have to prove for them this is feasible, there's no safety issue.
And I
And-
think once you add some trees or bushes in, it's gonna be some visual impairment, and cars don't come through there slow, that's for sure. So, I definitely request for it, you know, or ask the state for recommending that be a right in and right out, and, you know, there'll be an inconvenience for the few that use it, and I understand traffic's gonna be low, but again, the few that are going in and out, to Rob's point, Mr. Jones' point, it's a safety issue.
Do we have any more questions for the applicant right now?
I've got the concern still. I was hoping this, survey would have been cleared up. I know it takes a little time, but before, from Monday workshop till this evening,
East Main?
yeah.
East Main
So we
extended.
know for sure because that would alleviate a lot of the problems you guys are concerned with if we knew for sure that they were also gonna have that available to them.
Is that second entrance?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
To
a
me,
good
that's
point.
pretty
I
big.
mean, we feel strongly about this, and but I see your point in case that end up losing that entrance, that right in, right out, is going to
Yeah.
bottleneck that property.
And I understand your thought and your feelings, but I would have hoped we would see the survey, you know, actually saying and showing that actually does belong to this property in question. That would make me personally, my decision on this application a lot easier. And we're kind of putting it still in limbo, so to speak, so we don't know for sure that can, you know, for sure happen, that entrance there off East Main.
That's Lycan, isn't it? Or Lycan Oil Company?
At the very back of it.
Yeah, I think that's what that is.
Just have to come over the river.
Does anyone have any more questions for us?
Over here,
Yeah.
we don't know who owns it, why not?
Something.
There's just it's ambiguous from the beginning when you look back at the deeds of the property, where it was part of the railroad right away and who it was given to. I'm assuming that they abandoned, because I'd heard this before, you know, I don't know what it was. It was in relation to this property, but it's been some time ago, and that it was tough for the surveyors and the attorneys to figure out exactly who it belonged to.
I think
It
maybe
was
we
kind of
need-
like one of those pieces that was just kind of abandoned,
Exactly.
and the one owner assumed they owned it, and this owner assumed, because it was Tom Price at one time. I mean, I know he did some work on that area.
I think maybe need to take 30 more days and let them figure it out and come back.
Well, it's just in my personal opinion, it's the rest of the plan, and, you know, I'm in total agreement with, but I hate to go ahead and approve something with that.
Not knowing
That's
that's
pretty big.
Yeah.
Not
Can
knowing
we-
for sure that's.
that exit.
Can we have it as part of the condition for final development plan?
Yeah.
Can it be
Yeah.
part of final development plan
Yeah, we
approval?
can make that a condition of approval.
Yeah, I think that
A
would be
final
fine.
development plan.
Just as long as we get it done before
Yeah,
the
I'm
final
sure-
development
yeah.
plan.
I mean, the
Yeah.
staff is aware of, and I'm sure
Yeah.
they're not going to let us go without
What if it isn't there?
documentation.
That's a condition of approval,
Mhm.
that
Well,
exit
then
is
on the
available.
final development plan, not gonna be so easy to get through then.
Yeah.
This is preliminary.
Yes, sir. And you know, as I said, the devil in the detail. I mean, again, as you said, this is preliminary development plan. With final development plan, it will go through much more scrutiny. At that time, we'll have spoke to the transportation cabinet. and then we'll get this as resolved to the satisfaction of the staff and.
Joe, normally they wouldn't have to come back to us for final, or they would?
Right, but you could ask them to come back.
I'd like them to come
Final
back
if
for
they
the
don't
final.
get the entrance.
Yeah, we don't wanna leave all this on you all,
Yeah.
so to speak, yeah.
If you don't get the
that's fine.
entrance, I'd like to see you come back for the final if we're gonna approve it tonight for the preliminary.
Yeah,
If you didn't have this and somebody came in with a long trailer or a U-Haul, they'd have a hard time turning around in there.
You mean
one
at-
way in, one way out? So
Yeah, it'd be tough.
there's not that much room to turn a big vehicle around.
Yeah, we
So
are
I'll
in,
make that a condition of approval. Huh?
and we are in agreement with that condition if the board feel more comfortable.
Okay,
okay.
Thank you.
we'll bring you back up in a minute. So, I know there's some people here to speak. Mr. and Ms. Eads? Which one of you?
Up there with her?
If both of you want to come up, y'all come right on.
Okay. Wait a minute before she gets started, if y'all don't mind. I've read, the plans and everything.
State your names and where you live at, please.
James W. Eads Jr., Woody Eads is what everybody knows me by here in Georgetown. I live at 721 East Main Street, not East Main Extended. They got says East Main Extended. It's not East Main Extended where we live.
East Main Street.
Across the railroad track, I think she's got this on her list, is this Main Street Extended. Then,
Ms. Eads, could you state your name too, please?
Betty Eads,
Thank you.
same address.
Thank you.
You want me to?
then on the print plans they got, they say CSX Railroad. It is not a CSX Railroad. It's North Fork Southern. It used to be Southern Railway, and that's wrong on there. Now, I built my house where I live at 721 East Main Street 62 years ago when I was a young pup.
Bless you.
And so we've been there 62 years. I've lived on that end of town all my life. I'm 82 years old. And it's always been East Main and it was Southern because my dad retired from there at Southern Railway. That was two mistakes right there. The next thing I'd like to say is on the outlet there at the railroad crossing. I wish y'all would keep this in mind that you ought to do a traffic survey or control and see how much traffic comes there. Not during the day. You're going to find out there's a whole lot of traffic there at night since all these factories and everything's open up out there and the subdivisions and all that. We get a lot of traffic in front of the house. Now, about 30 years ago, didn't have the bypass and all that there. And I told my wife, I said, I'm going to sit out here in this driveway and see how many trucks coming by here. And back then, in 1 hour, now this is going both ways, I counted 90 trucks, dump trucks, hauling rock and stuff like that. I didn't count cars. I just counted dump trucks. That was coming from the rock quarry, see, because they had to use that. That's all I got to say. I'll let her take
Okay,
over.
a lot of this has already been discussed. But like he says, we've lived there a long time. I don't have it in my minutes about the pedestrians, okay? That was a good point. I didn't bring that up. But people walk in front of this proposed development. Why they don't walk on the other side is because they'd have to go across East Washington, they'd have to cross Bourbon Street. On this side, they don't have any. So they go down this side, then they peep around the railroad bridge, go on around Southern States, and some of them will venture on the other side, but they try to go on this side because of the streets. That's just my knowledge from living there. And we do have a lot of traffic. Okay, I'll start with my concerns. There are several concerns that need to be addressed by planning and zoning before approval. In 2004, which is ZMA 2004-68, if you want to write that down, public notice published in the Georgetown News, January the 5th, 2005, page 11. The meeting was held. I was here. I made a note at the end of the meeting. This was changed to B2 with the provision that plans be submitted for water drainage before any improvements be made. Has water issue been taken care of? What is the difference between a detention basin and a retention basin? I tried to figure it out. Number 2 on the certificate of ownership and dedication states retention basin to be maintained for proper functioning, free of any debris and so forth, but not proper drainage of water. Will this be full of water all the time, creating health hazard? Several existing buildings are not shown on preliminary development. At 1033 Paris Pike, Price Property, there are 2 buildings, Cash Express and a rental house in rear. How close will detention basin be to this property? At Likens, formerly Hamilton Oil, there are 2 buildings not shown and 4 or 5 big, huge gasoline tanks underground. They used to be above ground. Gasoline storage tanks along the line to Price's property. Concern is movement of ground. There are 2 houses not shown, 719 and R721 East Main Street. Plan is incorrect. It's not East Main Extended. East Main Street goes to Railroad, then county to the bypass. And they don't have any sewer line out there, so it's county from the railroad to McClellan. Detention basin will not be far from the corner of our property. The end of our lot goes to the gravel drive on what now is Likens. Then down a big cliff is where the detention basin would be. Along that drop there are these big gasoline tanks, okay? Also not shown is the Shell Minute Mart at the corner of East Main and Paris Pike, not far from this property. So you got constant traffic. They're constantly taking down the stop sign. Collisions are avoided. I mean, they're out there maybe once every 3 weeks, avoiding collisions and going this way and that way. We hear it. Next concern, entrance on East Main Street will be very dangerous for box trucks and so forth. Next to railroad and short turn for box trucks. Now, it's not a level road. You can go out there and look. It goes up a grade and then turns where they want to put the entrance. So it's not a direct entrance. You got to go up the grade to the railroad track. You know how that goes up there. And then they're proposing, and right now it goes down, so you're going to have to grade, which I'm concerned about the location and gasoline tanks and this detention pond. Now, there is also a huge water line underground going to the factory on East Main Street extended and in front of our house. What about grading? See the big line?
Say something like that. On the water line, if I remember right, my memory serves me right, it's a 16-inch line. They run it right down our driveway, went under to the railroad crossing, and went under the railroad crossing to the right, and then went under the railroad.
For the water tank, what was formerly Johnson Control.
To that's where the big water line run. And at the time, we asked them if something happened to the water line, because you take a 16-inch water line, man, that's going to put out a lot of water if it busts. They said, well, if it gets a hole in it, or we have to call somebody out of Cincinnati, because we have nobody here close that can take care of it if it busts.
So that needs to be shown, because I don't know how it affects that entrance there. See, it runs
It's going to
there.
run right at the entrance.
And we know because they dynamited our drive to put it in. Next exit on Paris Pike is 2 lanes, not widened because of the railroad bridge. It stays 2 lanes. It needs to be 4, whatever, long time ago, but the railroad would have to build another overpass. Now, I didn't put it in here, but while we have lived there, there's 2 train wrecks. Years ago, there was cars hanging off that bridge. If you hadn't built McClellan, there'd been no way to get to Dover Manor or anybody out there. That was the only way out. So I am happy there's another way to get around there. Now, it hasn't been too long ago, right down here at the East Main Railroad, those gray big steel rolls rolled off where this entrance is proposed.
About 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And, I mean, you can research all this. Okay, it hasn't been widened because of the railroad bridge over the road. Big help when they made Bourbon Street no left turn. You come down Bourbon, you couldn't see out left. Okay, now they're proposing trees, so you come out this way, you got the same thing as Bourbon Street. If you made Bourbon Street one way, then you're creating a problem coming out this way, and trees and the bridge and everything. If there was a problem on Bourbon Street's here, the proposed exit is here. What's the difference? You got the same thing, only you got big trucks doing it this time. Okay, now, big box trucks leaving create a problem. Traffic already a problem for 2 lanes. If you're ever out there and you see big trucks coming off in Washington Street, you better stay back because it takes a big wide area. If they come out Likens, they have to go a big wide swing. So you're going on down the road and you're having big swings with big box trucks. You follow me? Okay. Next concern will be there any auto parts stored with magnesium on them. This was discussed years ago at a planning and zoning meeting when they wanted to put Baker scrap iron and metal down on Maddox Street. And I went down and they wanted to bring all the scrap from Toyota down Main Street to Maddox Street to Baker scrap iron and metal. Okay, it was stated that if auto parts had magnesium on it, you cannot fight a magnesium fire with water. And nobody in Georgetown knew how to fight the fire if it broke out. And it would burn Georgetown College and the whole end of town. So I'm concerned about what they're going to store, especially in that 3.5-story building. One of the buildings, the way I read, is going to be 3.5 stories. Okay, now, I'd like to know if something like that was stored and fire broke out, then you have a fire you can't fight. You've got 4 or 5 big gasoline tanks. You've got a railroad track. You've got southern states that has different chemicals. So what are you looking at? Now, my summary is, has water issue been taken care of? Will it drain off property into sewer, or what? Well, detention means holding. It's not a very good place to hold a lot of stagnated water with mosquitoes and everything else when you have buildings around it. Now, if it was all vacant land, but you don't have that. Okay, is there a better way to enter and exit? That's my concern. And I can tell you what PVA has it for that abandoned land, because I went down and looked at the PVA drawing, which I have. They show it not abandoned. This is what PVA has. You want? Thank you. I got bad knees. Having shots in my knees. Now that's from the PVA office. Okay, now, just from memory, okay, years ago, Jimmy Hamilton owned Hamilton Oil Company, where Likens is now. Okay, I think the man's name was Mr. Estes. And Jimmy Hamilton had a big dispute over that F&C railroad in there. You may go to court records and find out, but I think Jimmy won. Now, I'm not sure on that. I can't prove it, but from living there and what was put there and what was moved, and then I think Jimmy came out with it, but that's just from living there. So you might go back through court records. If I remember correctly, I think they went to court over. Of course, Jimmy Hamilton, a lot of you knew him. But it was Hamilton Oil when we built there. But that came from PVA.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Does anyone else want to speak on this? Anyone in the audience want to speak on this one? Brent.
Brent Combs. This is just kind of a for your information kind of thing. We're talking about the ride in and ride out. I was just going to say we very recently down on Winchester Road in Lexington in the vicinity of Loudon Avenue, so it's a 5-lane section. We thought that there's no way the state would do a full in and out, so we actually proposed a ride in and ride out, and it was within 50 feet of a street intersection even. And District 7 came back and said, no, we won't give you that. We want you that to be a full ride in and ride out. So just a little piece of information.
Can you address the drainage issue, Brent?
Probably Yeehawd should address that.
Oh, okay. I thought you were
Bob.
doing this one too.
Yes, sir. It's impressive points. We are proposing detention, so basically it does not hold water, so it's going to drain, and that's what the reason we show the detention is that on these drawings, even though it's preliminary, because we understand water is a concern, and we are trying to show that there's enough space that we can place the detention basin in that location. And in order to kind of make them feel more comfortable, and we want to be good neighbors, we can propose, and actually we are proposing to have a fence around the basin, so we can around the whole property, so we can have a fence around this detention basin, so it can be secure, so there's no safety issue from the neighbor in that area, so we can secure that area with a fence. And I mean, there's a good points about sanitary sewers, there's a good points about traffic. And again, this property is zoned as a B2 zone. And B2 zone is very high density zone from generating sewage as well as generating traffic. And the use in front of you, it's basically the lowest use can generate sanitary sewers, and the lowest use can generate traffic. And the location for it, it's next to an I2 zone, it's next to a railroad track, and it's very coherent with the surrounding use as industrial use. So we are talking, even on industrial use, storage units are the ones that generate the least sewage, the least traffic. So all the concern is basically that's the best use to kind of address the concern. This property is going to get developed. It's zone B2, and the property has a right, as you guys know. And this is the least can this development impact from sewers, from traffic, from water, and it's going to be secured with a privacy fence, the whole entire property.
How would the water drain though?
Ma'am.
See, the water
Ma'am.
doesn't drain up.
You'll have to come back up, please.
Okay. Water doesn't drain uphill. So that's the reason, where will it drain out from your detention pond?
Yes, ma'am. We're going to
Go to the sewer or let it drain out on Paris Pike?
No.
Storm sewer or?
Okay. So basically, this is where we're proposing the detention basin. The detention basin is going to overstore all the runoff coming from upstream, and then it's going to be routed between the units all the way down to drain on Main Street.
On Paris Pike?
On Paris Pike, I'm sorry, on Paris Pike. So this is the route of our drainage. And you know, the city has a stormwater manual, and we're going to submit our calculation, and it's going to be less than what's the pre-condition. So over here we are over detaining, and then we're routing the flow down to Main Street. All Paris Pike.
Is there any way that you can hook it into a storm drain under Paris Pike? Or, see, water won't drain uphill. And where you've got the entrance there, it's not level off of Paris Pike. So the water's not going to go up the hill onto Paris Pike. Unless you flood your buildings, you know, I mean,
No, there is an existing culvert here, and that's what we're going to be tying to that culvert
the culverts were.
on Paris Pike.
I beg to differ. There is, unless it's underground.
It is under the road.
It's underground, so
Yes,
you're
ma'am.
gonna tie it into the underground at the low part of the lot?
That's correct, ma'am, over here.
Okay, so it'd be down by your storage buildings, that drainage, it will drain out instead of standing down here. I don't care about your fence, but I don't want, our house is not too far from that, the end of our lot, where you're proposing your detention pond.
Over here?
And I'd rather not have a mosquito, I'm not having a mosquito.
Yes, ma'am, we're not going to be storing water. There won't be any stagnant
You
water.
can guarantee it'll drain off.
Yes, ma'am. I
Okay,
can guarantee you that.
Those
well, I appreciate that if
ponds,
you,
they generally collect water and then they release it slowly. And they don't hold it indefinitely. With that,
well,
drain
see,
out-
he
drain
says
out
it's
in
gonna
the
drain
day.
off between the buildings.
Underground. Underground is going to be storm pipe.
Okay,
what's your Underground. storm
It's going to be from here, it's going to go between these two buildings, goes underground.
Okay, see, it's not shown on the drawing. is it?
It is shown, but it's kind of hard to see it, man. This is the landscape sheet, there's another sheet. It shows, this foam system, you see, man? There's like this line here.
Okay, as long as you drain the water off, you know, I mean, there's a little house that's not too far from this detention pond at the back of Price's property. And people do live there.
Well, by our ordinances, they can't put water on somebody else's property. They have to take care of their own water. Whatever water they catch, they have to take care of it, so, by our ordinances.
I'm concerned about, you know, the smell of water, mosquitoes, and everything that contaminated water creates. That's what I'm concerned about. Because years ago, when the gasoline tanks were above ground, you know, well, it's in a whole different story. But anyway, they were grandfathered in. And I'm trying to eliminate problems. I'm not being argumentative because I don't care what they build as long as it's
Yes, ma'am.
It's
Done
gonna
properly.
work.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yeah.
when the gas tanks were above ground, they probably had a collection, did water stand in there?
It was grandfathered in. And once they
Okay.
moved them for repair or anything,
That's that.
it was state, they couldn't put it back up, but they grandfathered in. So,
That's a
this
kind
is
of
a whole
different
different.
story.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
whole different thing, but the
Let's
tanks
stay
are
on this one.
underground
Yeah.
now.
Yes, ma'am.
And they're, oh, you see where the end of the detention pond is? Up that way?
Mhm.
Okay, those big tanks line up along Tom Price's.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Is there any more questions for the applicant or from the audience? Does the commission have any questions on this one? I kind of agree with some of the things we've stipulated, you know, the entrance, second entrance thing be cleared up.
Yeah, I don't think this will work without the second entrance.
No, I don't either. So, if we can go ahead and do a little bit more work on these conditions of approval, add a few things here. So I say number 8, let's add the final approval must be brought back before the full commission.
No, I thought we wanted to make a condition too that
We- And then we'll have number 9. Is that where you want your write-in,
I'd like it.
write out?
Sure.
So, Mr. Jihad, we're gonna ask for a write-in, write-out only condition of approval on that.
But, can I comment on it?
Yes, sir.
Don't mind,
Come on
please?
up. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if the transportation cabinet did not see there's any issue with full entrance, you still
We
want
can
to
only,
be-
we can only ask for it. I was on this commission when we approved the Buffalo Wild Wings
we asked for.
on Connector Road, and we asked for a right-in, right-only there, and the state overrode us, so they got what they wanted. So, but we're gonna ask for it. a right in, right out only.
Okay,
But the state's gonna give their
so,
recommendation.
Final say,
Yeah,
yeah.
state's gonna give final say, so.
okay, so for clarification, in case the entrance along Main Street and for some reason it did not turn up to be, we can tie to it for some reason, which is you still recommending right in, right out along Old Paris?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so either way, you are recommending.
Don't you think?
Actually, I think
That's
the
commission approval.
East Main Street, if that, did I understand right? If that is not available, we would not approve this, right?
Potentially.
Yeah. But that's gonna be brought back before the full commission too on that.
I thought that was a condition of approval, is that
That's I
East Main,
understand
that East Main exit
For entrance.
is available.
Okay.
Well, that's not what I actually said. All I said is I wanted to be sure if I was gonna approve, of course, keep in mind, we know this is a preliminary plan, but I still would have liked to have seen it, because we talked about it at workshop, cleared up, and I know it takes some time sometime, so then I would feel even more comfortable about even approving this. But it's my understanding at this point, we approve the preliminary, give them time to do some more work on it, to see what the state, because they're gonna make the final decision on the entrance, whether it's right in, right out, or right, left. We can suggest, but like Mr. Jones said, we've been there before, and the state is gonna make that decision. And like we were, told earlier too, from Brent, the state's gonna make that decision, but correct me if I'm wrong, but we would like to add some of these conditions in as conditions to approve this preliminary plan and then go from there with it. Is that correct?
It's here.
I think this is fairly reasonable request. Bourbon Street, they did make that, it is one way only. It's one way in for the first 300 or 400 feet.
Well, we can make it, but there again,
The state can override us, so.
that way we think in our minds, we're trying to do the right thing. Hopefully, maybe the state will take that in consideration, but they are the end result because it's a state road.
Does that make sense, Mr.?
Yes, it makes sense.
Okay. Are you okay with that condition?
Well,
Probably not, but.
I'm not okay with that condition, Mr. Chairman.
It sounds like to me that the commission is pretty set forth on that recommendation to the state as the right in, right only. Right in, right out.
It's just a recommendation, it's not they're gonna do what they want to do.
You're gonna take it
I
to the
guess.
state, so then we'll send our recommendation up to the state also.
All right, well, I mean,
My
I wish I can
biggest
change your
concern is
mind,
East
but
Main
I
Street.
can't.
If East Main Street's not available, I'd have a hard time approving this.
So condition number 9, we'll add right in, right out only onto 460.
Thank you.
There was another one. What was it? So I guess the second entrance, that will be, we'll see that on the final approval, since we're gonna ask it to come back for final approval.
Right.
So that's 9 conditions of approval right now. Any more discussion on it?
You didn't say anything about the connection at East Main Street?
Well, that's gonna be on the final
That's why they
approval.
come back.
Final, okay.
So that's why we're asking
Fair
to
enough.
come back on the final approval
Right.
on that, so.
So you've got 9 conditions now, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Do you? Final approval. Oh, okay. Well, I've got. Should we make the whatever we're calling it now, East Main or Main
East Main Street.
extended?
East Main.
That
East Main Street.
access, is that gonna be one of our?
Well, I think that's why we're bringing it back for final approval. Otherwise, we could send it to staff
Yeah,
and let
okay.
them have it. So this way, the full commission will see it. If we're not comfortable with it, we can turn it down at that time. Right?
I think Joe's got a question.
Yeah, did you wanna add anything about the sidewalks? Typically, we would require the sidewalks along the frontage, so you may wanna call that as a waiver, if you're not gonna require it. Just so, doesn't set a precedent.
A waiver, all right. Make it number 11, or just put a waiver at the beginning,
Yeah.
waiver, sidewalk not be required due to,
Unless you want to require it. Due to
I don't wanna make things extra hard on people, but, I think we need a sidewalk somewhere.
Well, it's the waiver is saying that we are not gonna require this development to put the sidewalk in, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you, yeah,
Along the front.
yeah, yeah.
We'll
Thank
make
you.
that condition number 10. Just we'll waive it. Why
I
did
think
you
rather than do it as a condition, we'll just add it to the top,
Oh.
so we have to.
You got a variance,
variance.
you put a waiver on there on the sidewalk, sidewalk will not be required.
So put it on the variance.
No, it's not really a variance, it's just a waiver.
This one's gonna be a hard one to,
Where are you putting it at, Matt?
present a motion.
I mean, I would put it up with the variance.
Yeah, that's what's
That's a number 2.
As a number 2 under the
Yeah.
variance.
I feel silly saying we're not gonna require a sidewalk, we're pushing for it everywhere we go.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to, I would call out the reason why you're not requiring it, because of the topography or whatever the reason was.
All right, I got 9 conditions of approval and 2 variances.
One waiver, one variance.
Well, we're adding a waiver to the variance, so. Yeah. I'm calling it a variance or a waiver to a variance or whatever. We'll get there somehow or another. We know what we're talking about anyway. So,
You might put the topography and safety concerns, pedestrian safety concerns, just to cover ourselves in the future.
topography and safety.
Yeah.
Okay. Is everybody good with that?
Sounds good.
Mr. Jihad, you good with those conditions now and variances? Okay, thank you, sir. Upon that, we'll need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept. Find where I am. That we accept PDP 2017-33 with the variance on the parking and with the waiver of the sidewalk not be required due to topography and safety concerns. And we approve it also with the 9 conditions of approval.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Smith to accept this application. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Caldwell. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion approved.
Sign papers on that one?
Yeah, I gotta give him sign. Mr. Jihad, could you come sign your papers, please?
Yes, sir. No, he's got him right there.
This be your copy. Thanks, sir. Next item of business is on Heiser parking extension.
Yes.
Okay. This is a Is this a zone change?
Yes,
So this will start the public hearing of the zoning change.
yes. This application, as you mentioned, is a zone change. The applicant is seeking to change the zoning of about 5 acres from A1 zoning to I1, which is our light industrial zoning. The project site is located at 167 Industry Road. The surrounding properties are either zoned I1 or A1, light industrial or agricultural. And the proposed use of the project site is to allow the applicant to expand the parking area for a business that's currently at that location. So if we look at the project site, the entire project site here is outlined with the black line. Several years ago, the applicant acquired this 5 acres to the north and consolidated it with their property. That property was and is zoned agricultural. The applicant came to staff asking what they needed to do to be able to expand the parking area for their current operation towards the north. We told them that since it was an industrial use, they needed to seek the appropriate zoning for the property. So that's what they have before us today. Looking at the zone change request in reference to the Kentucky Revised Statutes, there are a series of, or the application must meet one of these 3 conditions. The first being that it must comply with the comprehensive plan. If it doesn't comply with the comprehensive plan, we have to find that the current zoning is inappropriate and that the proposed zoning is appropriate. And if it doesn't meet that, then we have to find that there have been, some sort of major change, physical, social, economical, in that area that makes the zone change necessary. So with that in mind, I was unable to find that the proposed zone change was in compliance with the current comprehensive plan. Just on a side note, it will be in compliance with the draft comprehensive plan, but as far as the currently adopted comprehensive plan, it was not in compliance. It was this area that they're seeking to rezone is both outside the urban service boundary and it's proposed to be agricultural in the future land use map. So the application does not satisfy part 1 of the particular KRS statute that we're looking at here. So then we have to look at part A and analyze whether or not the current zoning is appropriate or not. And my finding was that the current zoning is inappropriate. The rest of the project site is, zoned and used in an industrial manner. Many of the surrounding properties, especially along Industry Road, are used in an industrial manner. So I found that the agricultural zoning for the northern portion of this property was inappropriate, and that the zoning district that they were requesting, the I-1 zone, was appropriate. So since it does meet, in my opinion, Part A, then we don't need to consider Part B since it has met one of the conditions. Looking briefly at the concept plan for the project site, there were a couple things that I wanted to note. The project site does already have an entrance, and this portion of their building does exist now. As far as the future development of the project site, the applicant will need to return before any further development is done on the project site, but they are looking into an expansion of their existing building, paving or repaving this side of the project site, and possibly using gravel for parking on the northern part of the project site, as well as adding an additional, spur off of their existing entrance. One thing that the applicants will have to keep in mind is that this isn't to scale, but I did kind of add these green rectangles here when they do come with a development plan. If the neighboring properties on this side and on this side are still zoned agricultural, they will have to provide a landscaping buffer unless they can secure an agreement from the neighboring property owner that the landscaping buffer is not needed. So with the findings that, that it is in compliance, or that the current zoning is inappropriate, and that the proposed zoning is appropriate, and having reviewed the concept plan for the project site, I recommend approval of this zoning map amendment with the three conditions listed on the screen and in the staff report.
Any questions for Matt? Nope.
Well, I did have a quick question.
Mhm.
Refresh my memory, are the other people in this area, are they annexed into Georgetown now, or?
I
There
can
was a question.
I can address that. So it's hard to see on here, but no, a lot of these properties along Industry Road are not within city limits currently. There is an adjoining parcel, which goes all the way down to the roadway to the south, is within city limits. So we have made it a condition of approval that as part of the rezoning that this property be consent to be annexed into the city. It is an urban use, and industrial uses are urban uses and should be contained within city limits.
Whose responsibility would it be to have those other parcels that are not currently in the city limits?
We can address those as they either develop or if they come back before the planning commission.
They aren't being used at this time for industrial purposes.
Many of them are. I think it's mostly a matter of either there wasn't adjacent property that was within city limits when they were developed, or they were being used already before zoning was extended to the area. But I mean, most of the parcels along Industry Road are being used in an industrial manner.
Any more questions for Matt? Thank you, Matt. Applicant, here to speak.
My name is Matt Onheiser, and you need an address. I live at 6873 Muddy Ford Road. This is just, we are, like I said, or like Matt mentioned, we are in the future wanting to expand our current facility, but before we can even entertain that thought, we need to increase our parking area, and it'll all be for empty commercial trailers, basically.
Do you agree with the conditions of approval?
Yes.
Anyone have any questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is anyone here else to speak on this application? Staff have any more comments? If not, we'll close the public hearing and have our discussion here. Anybody have any more questions?
I think, being that the site's already has already been shown within the urban service boundary, and its proposed use is for industrial, and this is light industrial. I think it's perfectly suited for it.
So upon that, are you making a motion, Mr. Smith?
I'd make a motion that we approve the zone change, ZMA 2017-35, with the three conditions.
And I have a second by Mr. Moran.
Okay.
This is a zone change, so we do have to do a roll call. Mr. Wiseman,
Yes.
Mr. Solsky,
Yes.
Mr. Moran,
Yes.
Mr. Shirley,
Yes.
Mr. Caldwell,
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Chair votes yes also. Motion approved. If you could come sign your papers up here, please. Where's that
Here's the pen now.
That'd be your item of business is ZMA 2017-38 Peters Irrevocable Family Trust Zone Change.
All right, this application, ZMA 2017-38, is for a zoning map amendment. Sorry. The applicant, Peters Carl B. Irrevocable Family Trust, has requested a zone change from A1 agricultural to B2 highway commercial for 1.22 acres at 1100 Lexington Road. Well, sorry. Okay. The site is located just south of Sonic and north of Taco Bell. All the surrounding properties are also Zone B2. The project site currently contains a residential property, as you can see there. The site is located within the urban service boundary, but it remains in Scott County. It's currently in the process of being annexed, though. All right. Thanks, Joe. Sorry. In order for a zoning map amendment to occur, the Planning Commission must find one of these conditions to be true. The first condition states that the zone change must be in agreement with the comprehensive plan. The requested B2 zone complies with the adopted comprehensive plan and the future land use map, so therefore Part 1 of the KRS statutes applies. Just to go over the concept plan really briefly, it's a pretty general plan right now. They propose a 4,500 square foot office building and a 2,000 square foot restaurant. The property will be accessed from Lexington Road, but they did propose a secondary access, which I'm not going to try the laser, but they did propose a secondary access to Mount Vernon Drive. The applicant would obviously need to work with adjoining property owners to actually bring that into fruition. The applicant will also need to show landscaping features and statistics on the preliminary development plan. And I want to note that no traffic study was needed based off the proposed use for this. So based on the above findings, I recommend approval of the zoning map amendment at 1100 Lexington Road with the 3 conditions that you can see there. Any questions?
Anyone have any questions?
Did I say this is a zone change, this is public hearing?
No.
This is a public hearing, so this is zone change, so. I forgot to say the public hearing. Thank you. Is the applicant here to speak?
Brent Combs, Thoroughbred Engineering, representing the applicant. So we're in agreement with the conditions, and if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Anyone have any questions for Brent?
Is it ever possible to keep the house on the property? Or I mean, I know it'd be nice to encourage the house to be saved.
The current owner, the trust, she was telling me today that she thought she had somebody interested in a use that would have kept the house, but that fell through. And so I don't think that, it's not to say that it couldn't happen, but there's no current plans, I don't think, to keep the house.
For me personally, and several people that talked to me, so it'd be great if we could approve it for B2 and keep the house.
Mm-hmm.
Will they keep the house in the meantime? Will they?
Yeah, I don't know if there's any immediate plans for the lot or not. The first step obviously is to get it rezoned so that its options can be looked at. So I just don't know what the ideas are for it at this time.
Sounds good.
I do know I do know that the purchaser is highly interested in that connection to Mount Vernon. He's already had me look up the names of the owners of what used to be Kroger, so I do know that.
Sounds good. Thank you, Brent. Is anyone else here to speak on this application? Staff have any more comments? Any more comments from the commission? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Take our final comments and take a vote.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve ZMA 2017-38.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Shirley and a second by Mr. Solsky. This is a roll call vote again also. Mr. Wiseman,
Yes?
Mr. Solsky,
Yes.
Mr. Moran,
Yes.
Mr. Shirley,
Yes.
Mr. Caldwell,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes also. Motion approved. On that, we got anything else, Joe?
No, we had one other thing on the agenda. Mr. Hartley, city attorney, was going to talk about code enforcement issues, but he's not ready. He's still doing research on that topic, so I'll leave it off the agenda next time until we're ready. So that's all we had tonight.
Still here. Do you know if the other two that got canceled tonight, are they gonna come back next month? Did they make a? In case they need to know.
I'm assuming they are, unless they can't work out whatever changes that they're thinking about making. So no guarantee, but they're postponed until next month. So they're not going to do new notifications. So we'll have to, if they do withdraw, we'll just have to put it on our website and announce it at the next meeting. So I would assume they're both coming.
Thank you, Joe. If there's no other business to take care of, meeting adjourned. Thanks, guys.